Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkey with Startup Trading. It is 8:31 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, May 26, 2020. I hope everyone had a nice holiday yesterday. So, looking at Friday's session real quick, we had a zone for the ES that we just couldn't muster to get out of last week. So all the indexes were kind of relatively flat to bearish, right? The Russell was more neutral, right? A lot of its trading volume for the day was inside the value area. The Nasdaq a little bit below, ES a little bit below, the Dow a little bit below. So they're actually a little bearish here, right? So before we get into what's going on right now, looking at the markets, let's just look ahead at the week real quick. So for scheduled news, we have consumer confidence at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, and then there's really no big U.S. scheduled news until Thursday. You get preliminary GDP, unemployment claims. Then at 10 o'clock, you got pending home sales, and then you go to Friday, you get 8:30 a.m. personal spending, 9:45 Chicago PMI, 10 o'clock University of Michigan revised consumer sentiment, and then the bigger one is Powell's going to be speaking at 11 a.m. on Friday at the Griswold Center. So I don't know if Chevy Chase will be there or not, but we'll find out. So looking down at earnings, really no big earners this week either. As we slide down to the performance of the indices, in the last 5 days, the Russell outperforming, right? Last 10 days, kind of, they're all together basically. 15 days, it is the Russell and the NASDAQ that are outperforming. 20 days, it's the Russell. 60 days, the Russell is by far the laggard, right? So maybe it's still playing a little catch up, with the NASDAQ being the outperformer. So as we kind of just look back at last week, and I want to go back to Thursday, May 14th. We were at 2760 quarter. Right now, we're getting quotes for 3008, 3009. So basically, we've topped out at 3015 in the futures overnight. So this block that I've got highlighted is basically between 2830 or 2939 and 2955. So 2939, 2955. We had that gap up after coming off of this 2760 quarter low on Thursday, the 14th, followed by a nice move up on Friday. Had that huge gap up Sunday, right? Thought the market would really do something. It just really, as far as the day time frame, you can see where it's not highlighted. That is the bell to bell where the stock market is open. We really didn't go anywhere all week last week, right? We sat there and just in a week-long consolidation. So futures opened back up Sunday night. The market was closed Monday, and they trade until basically 1 Eastern yesterday. So then they opened back up again at 6 o'clock last night, continue to muster up. Now we're at 30.15. So for the two sessions so far, the trading without the stock market open has been 462,000 ES contracts so far. If we look at all the indexes, as far as comparing what's going on right now to Friday's session, they're all up near the top of the range. I don't put a lot of weight on this when the futures traded yesterday. Basically, some of the other world markets traded yesterday, but the U.S. stock market did not trade. So I don't put a whole lot of weight in the floor trader pivot levels as much as I normally would. But anytime that you're at the level fours, either S or R's, right, you need to at least pay attention a little bit more. So with that said, what I'm really watching is the overnight session since futures opened last night. That's where my red and green dotted lines are going to appear on the charts. That's going to be the overnight high and low starting from 6 p.m. last night. So as we look at what's going on, right, you can see the Russell, is making new session highs right now as we speak. Excuse me. The NASDAQ is coming down right off of this high right at R4A, and it's just sitting here meandering down. It's lower than halfway back. And if we look at the Dow and the ES, they're a little bit more positive, but again, it's the Russell that is, the outperformer or the shiny star, right? It's got up 3.4%. You got the Nasdaq up 1.5%. The ES basically up 2%, and the Dow up basically 2.25%. So looking at sequences from last night's session open, you can see that the ES hasn't even traded the 38.2 support, which is now at 3,002. And then looking for the bears, they don't really have anything going. They just keep getting smacked at their 61.8, which is this dark orange line. So they don't have anything going to the downside for the ES. Looking at the Nasdaq, again, we point out how it was weaker than the other three markets, its brethren, and it's breaking the 61.8 long at this point in time. If we look at it from the bearish perspective, I'll blow this one up for a second here. For the Nasdaq, since it made this high at 96.04, right, it come down. It completely busted the shorts, but if you look at what happened after that, come back down again. Now it's holding the 50 short, sneaked in above the 50, but held the 61.8, come down. Now it's aggressively selling again. So basically, you're in a small extension sequence on a micro draw from this low to the current swing low. I'll take off the study so you can see that. So basically, you're at this low that printed right at 3:46 a.m. Eastern time of 95.67.5 to the low down here. So as we come down here, what you want to see is now, can they hold this halfway back? I think this is going to be telling for the Nasdaq, right? If this aggressive extension ends up holding and doesn't break, that can end up dragging the market, right? Because the FANGs was throwing everything up in recent times. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. Looking at the Russell, right? Totally opposite, right? Holding the halfway back long, basically an even front run, and then coming back in holding the 38.2, and it's aggressively long, and it looks just like the ES, right? The bears just have no hope for anything going on. So looking at the longer term time frames here, we spent basically, since we got into this range, we'll call it, we first appeared in it back on April 7th, and we've been heartily in it since April 12th, right? We were sitting here flirting in this zone, and then we were trying to break out of it. If you look at where these orange lines are, right? That's what we were trying to avoid, or break out of that range. So we broke out of it a little bit at the end of April, fell back into it, got back up into it at the beginning of May, fell back into it, and then in the last 2 weeks, right, got firmly above this level and coming up. The next major resistance I've had up here is at 30.27. So I know Jack has some targets right around 30.43 for a longer term, for basically this sequence playing out. So right around 27 to 43, I'm expecting some resistance. So if I look at risk to reward, basically, for where we're at, trying to play to the long side or the short side, I don't really like to play these large gaps up to the short side. So you've got to play it with limited risk, right? Can we fall completely back? Yes, we definitely can. Where could we end up going to? Basically, I think this is the zone. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this. But I think for a retracement, profile-wise, I'd like to see us come into this neighborhood for some type of retracement. And that's basically going to be between, 29.88 to 29.95. And then, that's what it's going to take me to get interested in participating, since I'm not currently in a position to the long side, at least is somewhere of a test down in here and looking at some other technical analysis at the time. So looking at and then where could we go, above that? If we really come out to these longer time frames, and I might have to bring up another chart for you here that we'll look. So if we look at the time frame, we're getting up close to an untested point of control up here at 30.23 half. Also, right, we topped up at 30.15 overnight. So above there, there's really a pretty large void above this. Uh, we'll just call it 30.30 up here. You get above 30.30, and there's really no true resistance until you at least get up to almost 3,200. So there's another 180 points in this area, and then this should be support. So if you see this big shelf, and we'll see how much we play back and forth with it. Maybe this week this ends up being support, or we just hit the top of this node, right, and start retracing back down to basically the 2935s. But this is the area, it's either going to become support or it's going to become hard resistance, where there is really no interest from here basically all the way up to 3,300. So from 3,027, 3,030 up to 3,300, there's really a lack of participation when we had that meltdown. So looking at the NASDAQ in the same way, and I'll see if I had anything. I don't even have anything marked on the chart. I'll put some markers on there today for us. Go back and look at before we had our epic crash down, where I think we're heading or whatever. But basically, we talked about this being weaker. Now, the same area I just drew for the ES that I'd be interested in support, if I were to draw that for the NASDAQ, it's going to be right in this window. It's just hitting the top end of that box. So that box is going to be basically between 9,500 and 9,536. So we'll see, how it goes, but it did just hit the top end of that. See if it responds up here. Now I do have some previous resistance that you can see it held, and maybe we should move this up just a little bit. We'll go ahead and do that since it's been a while since we've been up here. If I can grab it. There we go. So we'll get a little closer to the bottom of that. That's going to be right around 95.72 is where I'd like, that resistance. So if it can't get back up above there, and then really there's not a whole lot. There's only about 30 more points, 35 points up into 96.08 for the NASDAQ. So it could be congested up here. Remember, it's been the outperformer for years. People are pouring money into the Russell right now. So let's go ahead and look at it and see what we think about it. And let's see if I have anything marked off on here. So I really don't have, I have a huge void for the Russell right now. And I'll go back tonight and look to see if I have some other markers I can add in here. But I don't really have anything until 1582.30 if this holds. So you can see, why the Russell might be a little bit of an outperformer. If traders actually think that in the near future, let me remove that. If in the near future, this whole vacuum could end up trading, right? That's huge from 1377 all the way up to, 1582. And like I said, I'll see if there's some markers in here, but you can see where the profile was there. I mean, there's only minor resistance. The first resistance, just looking at the edges of the profile, will be 1458 half if 1377 holds. And you can see the flirt on there last week, right? The expansion up above it and going. So lots of upside potentially for the Russell, and that might be why people are diving into it. So looking at the Dow, let's see if I have anything. I don't really have anything marked off on it until 25,750. So, we've cleared this. We're not looking back. So we've got some vacuum trades, basically, or some raceways, as traders refer to them, for a couple of these indexes now. So the ES is right at that resistance. Remember, 3030 is going to be right around the test for it to see if it can get back of it. And Jack had targets at 3043. So remember that. So to 3050. Again, once you get over that, let's call it 3050, there's no real resistance until you get up almost to 3300 for the ES. So looking back at the profiles and thinking about, where this session could end up being, I'm going to watch this draw from extension to extension on the NASDAQ. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit that we added. And what I want to see is it break over this basically 95.56, right? And then go up, and then I'll be watching just the draw from overnight from the full high down. But this should be the key if this, holds or breaks. And if it breaks, because it did just come into that support area that we're looking at, breaking this should end up having it chase with the rest of these up higher in the zones. Now, keep in mind, though, although the NASDAQ has been the outperformer for a while, it looks like people are starting to favor the Russell over the last 6 weeks on and off. So if you want, the beta play, it's probably going to be the Russell and not the NASDAQ for at least the next few weeks. I hope this helps. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. If you like this technical analysis, give it a thumbs up at the bottom of the chart. If you're not already a subscriber, subscribe to the channel, and you can see me next time.